Good day, listener. Welcome to LIS 104, Information and Related Terms, Session 1. Introduction. Many students use the terms data and information interchangeably as if they imply the same meaning, inasmuch as the two are closely related and information is more often defined with reference to data. In certain situations, information is defined completely without recourse to data. Furthermore, there are other related terms which some students pretend they know how they relate to information, while others believe they are not even related. The following lecture will give a highlight of the concept of information and how it is related to some other key terms. Learning outcomes. At the end of this study session, you should be able to 1. Define information. 2. Explain the relationship between data and information. Definition of information. Information are data that is accurate and timely, specific and organized for a purpose, presented within a context that gives it meaning and relevance, and can lead to an increase in understanding and decrease in uncertainty. Information is valuable because it can affect behavior, a decision, or an outcome. For example, if a manager is told his or her company's net profits decreased in the past month, he or she may use this information as a reason to cut financial spending for the next month. A piece of information is considered valueless if after receiving it, things remain unchanged. Information is a stimulus that has meaning in some context for its receiver. When information is entered into and stored in a computer, it is generally referred to as data. After processing, such as formatting and printing, output data can again be perceived as information. Information retrieval and the concept of information. The term information retrieval, IR, is possibly one of the most important terms in the field known as information science. A critical question is thus, why and in what sense IR uses the term information? IR can be seen both as a field of study and as one among several research traditions concerned with information storage and retrieval. Although the field is much older, the tradition goes back to the early 1960s and the Cranfield experiment, which introduced measures of recall and precision. Those experiments range among the most famous in IS and continue today in the TREC experiment. Unfortunately, the word information can be very misleading. In the context of information retrieval, information in the technical meaning given in Shannon's theory of communication is not readily measured, Shannon and Weaver. In fact, in many cases, one can adequately describe the kind of retrieval by simply substituting document for information. Nevertheless, information retrieval has become accepted as a description of the kind of work published by Cleverdon, Salton, Spark-Jones, Lancaster, and others. A perfectly straightforward definition along these lines is given by Lancaster. Information retrieval is a term conventionally, though somewhat inaccurately, applied to the type of activity discussed in this volume. An information retrieval system does not inform, that is, change the knowledge of the user on the subject of his inquiry. It merely informs on the existence or non-existence and whereabouts of documents relating to his request. This specifically excludes question-answering systems, as typified by Winograd and those described by Minsky. In 1996, Van Rijsbergen and Lamas, page 386, however, declared that the situation had changed and that the purpose of an information retrieval system was to provide information about a request. Although some researchers have fantasized about eliminating the concept of document, text, and simply storing or retrieving the facts or information contained therein, it is our opinion that IR usually means document retrieval and not fact retrieval. We shall return to the difference between documents and facts later, but here we want to show why information and not, for example, document, text, or literature was chosen as a central term in this core area. LIS describes an anomaly in IS. Brooks noted the anomaly could be resolved if information retrieval theory were named document retrieval theory, which would then be part of library science. However, he commented that those working in the field of information retrieval were making the explicit claim to be working with information, not documentation. Those who work on IR theory explicitly claim to be working on information, not documentation. I therefore abandon the simple explanation of a misuse of terminology. I have to assume that IR theorists mean what they say, that they are contributing to information science. But are they? Emphasis in original. Ellis and Brooks should not refer to the opinion of researchers in their attempt to solve this problem. Only arguments count. In our view, it is not too simple an idea to claim that information retrieval theory is in reality document retrieval theory, and thus closely associated with library science. One reason for information scientists to refuse not to be linked to library science might be that important technological improvements were carried out not by people associated with librarianship, but by those affiliated with computer science. This preference is most probably the reason they claimed to work with information, not documentation. Nevertheless, Brooks' statement is flawed, and it has provoked endless speculation about the nature of information, which has not contributed to an understanding of the problems of IR. The worst thing may be that information scientists have overlooked some of the most important theoretical problems in their field. Van Rieksbergen has pointed out that the concept of meaning has been overlooked in IS. The fundamental basis of all previous work, including his own, is in his opinion wrong because it has been based on the assumption that a formal notion of meaning is not required to solve IR problems. For us, it is reasonable to suggest a link between the neglect of the concept of text and document on one hand and meaning or semantics on the other. Semantics, meaning, text, and document are much more related to theories about language and literature, whereas information is much more related to theories about computation and control. You do not claim, however, that the statistical methods used in IR have not been efficient. We do claim, however, that semantics and pragmatics, among other things, are essential to better theoretical development in IR and in the long run also to the improvement of operational systems. Information terms: data, information, news and information, information and communication, information and knowledge, wisdom. Data. Data can be defined as a symbol or a set of symbols to which meaning can be attached or which can be processed. Data can be in form of numbers, text, image, graphics, and sound, voice. When data is arranged in a meaningful form that it can convey some idea, it becomes information. Obviously, processed data becomes information. Processing of data could be translation, calculation, arrangement, and so on. Information is the output of a data processing system. However, information is not an end in itself, but a means to an end. If information, which is the output of computers processing, is re-input into the same or another computer, it becomes data again, which can be processed further. Information. There is no single universal definition for information. This led to the definitional problem of information. The problem is further compounded by the fact that information is a category word. For example, agricultural information, financial information, scientific and technical information, and so on. Information scientists and researchers have therefore resolved to conceptualize information. That is, information is regarded as a concept. Therefore, information can be conceptualized from several points of view. Thus, from the data point of view, we can define information as data to which meaning can be picked to which meaning has been attached, or data that has been processed or evaluated. From the point of view of uncertainty, we can define information as that phenomenon that enhances our understanding of a subject matter or helps to a certain extent to resolve an uncertainty about the subject matter. News and information. News is anything new or any piece of information that is new. It is the newness that distinguishes it from information. Information could be either news or not. The following axiom could be proved. All news is information, but not all information is news. This means that news is a subset of information. Information and communication. Communication is a means of disseminating information. Communication is a process. Information is being transmitted in the process. So communication is a process of conserving and transmitting information from the source or origin through a channel, medium, to the recipient or destination. The source or origin could be documentary material, that is, for example, published or unpublished literature or working papers. It can even be people. The channel is a pathway through which information travels, for example, telephone line or internet. Information and knowledge. When one obtains information, understands and assimilates it, and is even able to pass it on, it becomes knowledge. That is, there must be a clear perception. It is possible to have information and even pass it on without understanding it, but there must be understanding and assimilation before we can call it knowledge. Personal knowledge, once incorporated into replicable media, including books, journals, software, and so on, serves as potential information to others. In general, knowledge seems to represent a higher degree of certainty or validity than information. Information is a set of facts, while knowledge connotes understanding with the implication that not all information is necessarily understood. Wisdom. Wisdom is the application of knowledge in human judgment. It is a higher level of knowledge or meta-knowledge. Wisdom is essentially knowledge about manipulating knowledge. Relationship between data and information. The numbers have no way of speaking for themselves. You speak for them. You imbue them with meaning. Statistician Nate Silver, in the book The Signal and the Noise. Data are simply facts or figures, bits of information, but not information itself. When data are processed, interpreted, organized, structured, or presented so as to make them meaningful or useful, they are called information. Information provides context for data. For example, a list of dates data is meaningless without the information that makes the dates relevant. Date of holiday. Data and information are intricately tied together, whether one is recognizing them as two separate words or using them interchangeably, as is common today. Whether they are used interchangeably depends somewhat on the usage of data, its context, and grammar. Relationship between data and information. Examples of data and information. The history of temperature readings all over the world for the past 100 years is data. If this data is organized and analyzed to find that global temperature is rising, then that is information. The number of visitors to a website by country is an example of data. Finding out that traffic from the US is increasing while that of Australia is decreasing is meaningful information. Often, data is required to back up a claim or conclusion. Information derived or deduced from it. For example, before a drug is approved by the FDA, the manufacturer must conduct clinical trials and present a lot of data to demonstrate that the drug is safe. Summary for study session 1. In this study session, you have learned the following. Definition of information. Information are data that is accurate and timely, specific, and organized for a purpose, presented within a context that gives it meaning and relevance, and can lead to an increase in understanding and decrease in uncertainty. Relationship between data and information. Data are simply facts or figures, bits of information, but not information itself. When data are processed, interpreted, organized, structured, or presented so as to make them meaningful or useful, they are called information. Information provides context for data. End of study session 1. Thanks for listening.